Hello everyone, I am Anubhav Sinha, Assistant Professor in IIT BHU, and today I will talk about vapor power and refrigeration cycles. So this is the outline of this presentation. So this presentation consists of two parts. In the first section, I will talk about vapor power cycle, which includes simple Rankine cycle, efficiency of Rankine cycle, how do we calculate efficiency. Then we'll also talk about irreversibilities observed in turbine and pump, and then we'll discuss various methods where we can improve efficiency. Particularly we'll focus on these two methods, reheat and regeneration. Then in the next half we'll talk about refrigeration cycle. So we'll look into ideal vapor compression cycle. We'll see how to calculate COP for that, coefficient of performance. We'll also look at various refrigerants available and other methods for refrigeration. Particularly we'll talk about gas cycle refrigeration. So let us begin with vapor power cycle. We'll talk about Rankine cycle. So this is the schematic of a setup for Rankine cycle. Mostly in thermal power plants we use this type of setup, and this is your TS plot. So let us look at various processes involved. So at first we have a liquid which is pumped using this pump at a slightly higher pressure. So we are going from 1 to 2. So this liquid is basically pumped to a boiler where heat is added. Liquid is converted to vapor. So you can see this red line shows the vapor dome, where initially having one is saturated liquid which goes to 2 inside the pump. Then from 2 to 3, this is the heat addition process, isobaric heat addition. So first process is isentropic compression in a pump. Then we add heat at constant pressure, isobaric heat addition inside this boiler, which is shown here. So this is your isobar for P1. It is heated till it becomes superheated vapor at 3, which is shown here. Now from 3 it is passed through a turbine. It expands through a turbine and then it performs work on the turbine, which is our output. So here that process is shown, and that happens isentropically. So it expands through the turbine using an isentropic process or reversible adiabatic process. So finally it reaches to 4, which is at the beginning of condenser, and then the fluid is condensed by rejecting heat in an isobaric fashion. So at constant pressure again heat is extracted from the fluid and it becomes liquid again. So this is the basic processes involved in a ideal Rankine cycle. So these processes can also be plotted in PV and HS plot. So same set of processes you can see here. 1 to 2 is isentropic compression, 2 to 3 is isobaric heat addition, which is shown here. So this is your vapor dome. I'm sorry, this is not so clear, but you can make out this is the vapor dome, and these 4 processes are marked accordingly. 3 to 4 is isentropic expansion in the turbine, which is this process, and 4 to 1 is isobaric heat rejection inside the condenser. Similarly, we have shown these processes on a HS diagram, enthalpy and entropy. So 1 to 2 is isentropic compression, so it has straight line in perpendicular to the S axis. Then we have 2 to 3, which is isobaric heat addition, shown here P1. Then it comes down isentropically expanded inside the turbine, and 4 to 1 is isobaric heat rejection in condenser. Moving on, let us now talk about efficiency. So we need to consider what are the various processes involved and how do we calculate energy in those processes. So let us begin with the pump. So here the primary quantity of interest is enthalpy. Okay, because temperature is also changing and phase is also changing. So enthalpy will give you total heat content, what we are interested in. Now for the pump, work done by the pump is the difference between enthalpy at 2 and 1. So the fluid comes at 1, H1 at H1, then work is added and then it reaches to H2. So WP can be written as the difference between these two, H2 minus H1. Now coming to boiler, so here we are adding heat to boil or evaporate the fluid. So that heat is, so the fluid is changing the state from 2 to 3. So heat added in boiler can be noted as H3 minus H2. This is the difference, or this is the amount of heat supplied which changes the state from 2 to 3. Now from 3 to 4, the work is done by the fluid on the turbine, which is taken as output. Now this output is H3 minus H4. So initially the fluid was at state 3, so it has H3. Now it has performed some work and as a result the enthalpy will come down. So H3 minus H4 will give you what is the work done in this process. Now let us come to the last step, which is inside the condenser. So the initially fluid is at state 4 and it goes to state 1. So the difference is caused by this condenser, which is the heat extracted. So initially it has higher enthalpy H4. Once you lose that, you come to H1. So that difference is Q out, or what is the heat lost in the condenser. So the efficiency can be noted as net work done by the system divided by heat supplied at higher temperature, which is Q in here, Q in the boiler. Now W net is the difference between the turbine work, which is output, minus W pump, because this is supplied, this is the input, divided by QH. Now these all terms can be noted in terms of enthalpy differences as we discussed here. So WT turbine is, work done in turbine is H3 minus H4, which is shown here. Then WP, as we have discussed, H2 minus H1 shown here, and Q in or QH is H3 minus H2. Okay, sometimes we also assume that the work done in the pump is negligible compared to other factors. So we can approximate the efficiency of a Rankine cycle as only taken using a turbine work done and QH. So we can neglect H2 and H1 for some conditions. Moving on, so we have talked about ideal cycle. Now what are the differences a real cycle has as compared to ideal cycle? So here you can have a look. So the solid arrow shows, solid curve shown in green shows you the ideal cycle, while the dotted curves shows you the actual cycle. So generally there will be losses in the piping losses, there will be frictional losses, and there will be heat transfer with the surroundings. So let us look at the first process. From 1 to 2, there will be some irreversibility in the pump as well as turbine. So isentropic process is theoretically what we want to achieve, but it will always have some increase in entropy. As you can see this, both in pump as well as turbine, entropy will always increase. Secondly, we will have some pressure drop in the boiler as well as condenser. So that will deviate the actual cycle from what we plan in what we think of when we talk about ideal cycle. Moving on, so two important irreversibilities that we can account for is what we see inside the turbine and as well as pump. So turbine, we can define the isentropic efficiency. So that can be defined as work done by the turbine in a real process or real cycle divided by ideal cycle. So if you look at this plot, actually the work done by turbine can be calculated using H3 and in real cycle it goes to 4A. So actual cycle work done is H3 minus H4A. Similarly, for ideal cycle, the theoretical work done is H3 minus H4s, which is shown here. So this will give you an idea of the efficiency or effectiveness of turbine. Similarly, we can define isentropic efficiency for the pump. So neta P, we can say what is the ideally work input requirement for the pump divided by real work input. So the definition of efficiency for turbine and pump are different. Why? Because turbine is actually producing work. This is giving positive work, while pump is absorbing work. Okay. So if my real cycle work is more than what I planned or what I saw in ideal cycle, then efficiency of a turbine will increase. While on the other hand, if actually I need to spend more work to run the pump as that was planned in the ideal cycle, then it means that we have a lower efficiency. If real is more than ideal, I will have a lower efficiency for the pump, but if real is more than ideal, then turbine is doing a good job. It is better than what was planned using an ideal cycle assumption. Okay, so again for the pump we'll use enthalpy values. So the ideal cycle is from 1 to 2s and real cycle is from 1 to 2a. So ideal work done is H2s minus H1, this change, while WP real is H2a minus H1 for this step. Okay, let us go to the next cycle, next plot. So now we want to also improve the efficiency of Rankine cycle. This is the formula for efficiency. So what can we do? We can either improve this or reduce this. So what are the available methods? So one is that we can lower the condenser pressure, or we can superheat the steam to higher temperature and pressure. We can also increase the boiler pressure. We will also look at the method called reheat and regeneration that we'll talk about in detail in later slides. And we can also combine this Rankine cycle with other cycles to recover some amount of waste heat. So one method is lowering the condenser pressure. So in this TS plot, what we are seeing here is that 1, 2, 3, 4 is the normal cycle without any change, ideal Rankine cycle that we talked about. Now if we lower the pressure in condenser, so what will happen? This will shift down. Okay, what we see here is that this shaded area is the increase in W net, while there is a small minor amount of increase in heat supplied. So this amount to this increased length of this curve amount to more heat to be supplied to this working fluid. So but that is a slight amount. Overall we see that W net is increased, so efficiency will improve. Moreover, what we can also do is we can superheat the steam. So again this 1, 2, 3, 4 is the ideal cycle without any change, while this 1, 2, 3 dash and 4 dash is the modified cycle when we are superheating the steam to higher temperatures. So what happens is that you get more work here. Okay, here also there is a slight increase in Q, because when you are superheating you need more extra heat to get to that temperature. So we see that there is a change in both work and QH, but our effort should be that work should improve more. There should be a proportionately higher increase in work as compared to Q, such that we get higher efficiency. Let us look at another method, which is for increasing the boiler pressure. So this is one isotherm which is there in the normal cycle, isobar, and if we increase pressure here, then we have another isobar. So what we see here is that the green colored shaded area is the increase in W net, but since this process 3 to 4 is also shifting this side, which amount to decrease in work. Okay, so by increasing the boiler pressure, work done is increased for this region, but lower degree of superheat also decreases the total work. Now the total work W net, what we are trying to achieve, we want to increase this. This may either increase or decrease depending on the proportional ratio of these areas. If this is higher, then the W net will be positive or increase. If this is higher than this area, then W net will decrease. So this is not a very effective strategy. Rather than doing this, what we can also do is, we can increase the boiler pressure to supercritical pressures. So basically the pressure will be higher than the supercritical pressure. So the turbine will the turbine and boiler will be operating at supercritical pressures and temperature. So this is a effective strategy and it is used in many power plants today. But the only challenge is that you need to design your system to handle that much higher pressure and temperature. So another interesting method to improve efficiency is reheat. So what we do here is that instead of having a single turbine, we can have two turbines. Okay, so once the working fluid is expanded through one turbine, it will again be sent to the boiler, it will be reheated, and then that reheated fluid is supplied to the next turbine. So this is how it will look in TS plot. So what happens is, this is your normal cycle. Without reheat, it will go like this. From 3 to 4, it will come down. So the blue dotted arrow that you see, blue dotted line, that shows you the actual cycle without reheat. Now, instead of going down like this, what I have done is, we are reheating it. So reheat, and this goes to the low pressure turbine. And this amounts to increasing this much area is increased. So this increases your work done and improves your efficiency. So generally 2 or 3 turbines are used for reheating. More than that is not practically beneficial. And another major advantage of using reheat is that it reduces the moisture content. So basically at the end of this process, we don't want liquid in turbine blades. We would ideally prefer it to be slightly superheated or just superheated vapor, just here, which is saturated vapor. But mostly some amount of moisture is also formed, so that can be avoided using reheat. Another important strategy to improve efficiency is regeneration. So what we do here is that once the hot fluid is expanded through the turbine, instead of letting it pass through all the stages, some amount of fluid is extracted in between. After passing some stages but not completely passing through the turbine, in between some amount of fluid is extracted. This is called bleeding. So once we extract this fluid, we send it to feed water heater. Okay, so using this heat, we actually heat the fluid that is supplied to the pump, such that when it reaches the boiler, it is at a higher temperature. So you can look at it here. So initially I have the fluid is going from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, which is here. Now the fluid coming from the turbine from 6. So this is the point where I am using blade or fluid which is bleeding from the turbine. This comes back and this provides heat. This mixes here and then the total heat content increases. Okay, so it goes to 0.4. So it is at a higher temperature when it goes to boiler. Okay. Basically what regeneration does is that it increases the average temperature for heat addition. So this cycle would have been like this, but because of regeneration this has increased. There is an increase in area. Secondly, the fluid that is here at 6, this would have been passed through the condenser in normal conditions, but because of regeneration that is extracted here and not passed through condenser. So this would have amounted to more heat loss in the condenser. This is the heat loss in condenser is basically we are throwing away that heat. So that is also prevented. So just to summarize, regeneration means that you will extract some amount of heat, some amount of fluid from this turbine without completely passing through the turbine. That will be mixed with feed water which is fed to the pump. That will increase the temperature of the liquid supply, the fluid supplied to the boiler, and it overall increases the average temperature for heat addition, and amount of energy loss in the condenser is also reduced, which improves efficiency. Moreover, feed water heater are of two types, open or closed. So this one is open here. For closed, the fluid will not mix. So we will not discuss about that, but the basic idea is that you are extracting heat from here and supplying that heat to boiler before the boiler. So another interesting idea is that you use a gas power cycle. This is a Brayton cycle, and at the end of that cycle we are throwing some amount of heat in the exhaust. So instead of throwing that heat, what we can do is we can utilize that heat in a heat exchanger and use it instead of boiler in a Rankine cycle. So this is the normal Rankine cycle that we have discussed previously. Only change is that instead of boiler I have a heat exchanger from this gas turbine cycle. So that this process is also shown in this TS plot. This blue curve shows you the gas power cycle. Here the boiler part is there where we receive heat from boiler, that is replaced by the exhaust of gas turbine, and rest of the parts are similar for Rankine cycle what we have already discussed. Now let us also go to refrigeration cycle, which is vapor compression cycle. So let us first talk about the ideal vapor compression cycle. So these are the various components. So let us talk about the processes, and these are the TS and TH plot. So the first stage is isentropic compression inside the compressor from 1 to 2. So the fluid is compressed isentropically. Okay, one interesting thing here is that when we study about power cycle, the cycle runs clockwise, so that the work produced is positive. The cycle produces work. Now vapor compression or refrigeration cycles, these are designed to produce cooling effect or refrigeration. So for that these cycles absorb heat, absorb work. So the net amount of work is supplied to this and they absorb heat. So these are not producing work, these are absorbing work, and in the process they absorb heat, which is our requirement for refrigeration system. Okay, now coming to the steps of the cycle. So first is isentropic compression inside the compressor, which is shown here, and this is the step. So we are having a fluid which is we start with a saturated vapor which becomes superheated during the work input. Now the second process is isobaric heat rejection, constant pressure heat rejection from 2 to 3. So this is similar to your Rankine cycle. Now instead of getting heated, this is rejecting heat, which happens in this condenser. So this basically throws your heat to the outside ambient air. Then it becomes saturated liquid at 3. That liquid is passed through an expansion valve, and this process is known as throttling. Okay, so I'll talk about what is throttling in the next slide, but the main idea is that H remains constant, or enthalpy remains constant from 3 to 4, which is shown here in pH plot. So this in pH plot 3 to 4 process is perpendicular to the enthalpy axis. Okay, moving on, the last step is isobaric heat absorption inside the evaporator. So this is our evaporated 4 to 1 heat absorption. So this is basically your refrigeration step. Here the heat is absorbed from the volume which we want to cool or we want to refrigerate. Okay, again we'll just quickly look at these processes in pH plot. So isentropic compression 1 to 2, here we add work. Then 2 to 3 is isobaric heat rejection, constant pressure, this is your pressure line, pressure axis. 3 to 4, enthalpy is constant, this is throttling, and then at constant pressure heat absorption or in evaporator. Moving on, let us also now talk about throttling process. So throttling can be done using an adjustable valve, needle valve, or we can have a capillary tube or porous plug. So basically what happens is, you can think of it as having a constricted passage. So fluid passes through this constricted passage. Okay, this 3 to 4 is what we are talking about. Now the basic idea or basic assumption is that enthalpy remains constant. So the enthalpy at 3 is same as what is there at 4. Now enthalpy can be written as sum of internal energy and PV. Now initially at 3 we have saturated liquid which turns to liquid plus vapor at 4. This is inside the vapor dome. Now what happens is that the part of the refrigerant evaporates. So we have a mixture of liquid plus vapor. There is also decrease in temperature and pressure both. You can look at these plots. So temperature is decreasing from 3 to 4, and again pressure is also decreasing from 3 to 4. But volume will expand. So because we are having a change in phase, liquid is changing to vapor, so V4 will be much higher than V3. So although U4 will decrease because of change in temperature, P will also decrease, but the increase in V4 is enough to balance that, and finally we have constant enthalpy process. So this is called throttling. Moving on, let us now look at the performance parameters. So we measure the performance of a refrigerator or a heat pump using COP, coefficient of performance. Now what it measures is that what is the amount of heat absorbed, QL. This is what we are looking at. This is the output or objective of a refrigerating system, and to achieve this objective, what is the work input required, what is the net work required to achieve this. Now this QL is, as we have already discussed, H1 minus H4. So this is the process where QL or heat is absorbed. So it is difference between H1 and H4, and W is the difference between H2 and H1. So this will give you COP. Another interesting term is ton for refrigeration. So basically when you go to market to buy a AC, air condition, you talk about ton. So there is a 1 ton AC or 2 ton AC. So it is not the weight of the AC, but it basically refers to the cooling capacity. So a ton of refrigeration is defined as rate of heat transfer. Okay, so that is equal to how much heat is required to be extracted from 1 ton of ice at 0 degrees Celsius. So if you have water at 0 degrees Celsius, how much heat you need to extract to freeze that in 24 hours. So this will give you 1 ton of refrigeration, and this is approximately equal to 12,000 BTU per hour or 3.5 kilowatt. So this is what 1 ton of refrigeration is equal to. Now let us also look at the actual or real cycle, and what are the losses or irreversibility involved. So in all real systems we will have friction loss when fluid is flowing through pipes. There will also be heat transfer with the surroundings, and we will also have some irreversible process. Basically we will not have isentropic process, as entropy will increase. So let us look at the TS plot. So one important point is that this for ideal cycle we will want the refrigerant to be at saturated liquid at this stage, but it gets subcooled because of losses. Again, ideally we will want this to be a saturated vapor, but that is very difficult. It is very difficult to precisely land at this point. So basically it is left at superheated stage, which is different from ideal cycle. Another very interesting point is that if it is an ideal cycle, it will go from 1 to 2, but it can also deviate from that isentropic process, and it is also possible that less amount of work is required, which will improve your efficiency. So these are the various deviations that we can observe in a real cycle as compared to ideal cycle. Moving on, let us now talk about refrigerant. What are the fluids required for our refrigeration cycle? So on what basis shall I select my fluid? So first of all, I need to look into what are the temperature ranges for my cooling space and what is the temperature in the ambient environment. So this will be a major basis to decide what refrigerant I am going to use. And obviously your refrigerant should be non-toxic, non-corrosive, it should not be flammable, and it should be chemically stable. And it should also have a high enthalpy of vaporization so that less amount of refrigerant is required. It should also be cheap and cost effective to use. Now one major environmental concern from refrigerant is coming from CFC based refrigerants. So what happens is that initially we used a lot of these CFC based refrigerants, but later it was found that these are basically responsible for damage in the ozone layer. So now this CFC or chlorofluorohydrocarbon based refrigerants are getting replaced by other modern refrigerants, and particularly HCFC, where we have one additional hydrogen replacing halogens, which are a better alternative. So another point is that what are the various methods for refrigeration. So we have talked about the vapor compression cycle, and other methods also include absorption refrigeration cycle, where the refrigerant is absorbed and then it is reabsorbed in the next steps. We could also have a heat pump which is designed primarily to supply heat, but we can modify it and use it for refrigeration. We can also have liquid gas systems. For example, liquid nitrogen is used as a cooling medium for a lot of systems, and evaporative cooling is also a very effective method for cooling a system. Another interesting method is reversed Brayton cycle or Bell-Coleman cycle, which is also called gas refrigeration cycle. So this is basically used in air conditioning for aircrafts. So let us have a look at this cycle. So basically this is a, as I said, reversed Brayton cycle. So it has all the processes involved in a Brayton cycle but in a reversed form. So step 1 to 2 is isentropic compression in the compressor, which is shown here, 1 to 2. Then I have isobaric heat rejection. So in this heat exchanger, the pressure is maintained constant and we extract heat through it basically to the ambient environment. This process is shown here, 2 to 3, which is on isobaric line. Now from 3 we expand this fluid in the turbine isentropically, which is shown here, a straight line. This is the entropy axis that is missing here, so this is TS plot. Okay, now after the turbine it goes to heat exchanger where it is absorbing heat at isobaric condition. Pressure remains constant from 4 to 1. So this is where the cooling effect is taking place. Here we interact with the refrigerated space and extract the heat from here. So this is your Bell-Coleman cycle or reverse Brayton cycle. So with that we will stop and look at what are the reference books available, and I have taken most of the images from Sengel and Bohl's book on thermodynamics, and you can also refer to Borgnine and Sonntag and P.K. Nag. With that, I will thank you all and stop this video.